By the time you're watching this, Forbidden Solitaire has been out for a few days, and it is currently poised to be the best-selling or farthest-reaching game from Grey Alien. And it brought up a very interesting point about how this isn't the most advanced version of this particular style of Solitaire. And for today's critical thought, I want to talk about how Grey Alien tried to reinvent the wheel a few years ago, and why it just did not work in the same way that Forbidden Solitaire does, and how this relates to the discussion about depth and complexity, and why just making your game more advanced doesn't mean it's going to become better or more marketable at the end. Forbidden Solitaire is a collaboration between Night Signal Entertainment and Grey Alien Games. And if you check kind of the path it took from its announcement, it got a lot of buzz, appealing to casual fans, Solitaire fans, 90s FMV lovers, and of course a bit of horror. And people were comparing it to the likes of Inscription, especially with the live action segments, or live action FMVs. And it was doing some numbers. I even saw channels like was a Mainly Badass Hero covering the game. They were not covering Regency Solitaire 2, unfortunately. And while it's still too early to see what the game's going to do long term, Jake and Helen have high hopes that this is going to be one of their best-selling and furthest-reaching games they've had. And again, Jake did the famous talk at GDC about how to survive in the industry without a breakout hit. He may have to amend that, as people are talking about on social media. But Forbidden Solitaire is not the most advanced version of this kind of Solitaire-based combat. They actually experimented with this a few years ago with the game Shadowhand, that we covered here on the channel. I don't even know if I saw the footage of it, and we may just be using stills for the rest of this video. Shadowhand was their attempt at merging the kind of casual Solitaire affair of something like Regency Solitaire with a full-on RPG, complete with gear, different builds, special attacks, and more. And it was challenging. It was really hard. Playing on the highest difficulty, thinking about it is bringing me some PTSD. We have to combine it with those very strict chapter challenges on top of the end of chapter boss. And I beat the game on the highest difficulty before it was nerfed. And I think Jake said he was going to put a special nod or something in one of his games for me, and I don't think he ever did. So if they ever do decide to do a Forbidden Solitaire 2, I expect to get at least a bit role in that doing something. Now, joking aside, Shadowhand was their attempt at trying to evolve the whole version of Solitaire, to make it more challenging, to appeal to core and hardcore gamers. And on paper, it sounds like it would work. Take something very casual, add a lot of depth to it, and you get something amazing, right? I mean, you look at stuff like Balatro, which is a deck builder meets poker. Luck Be a Landlord, Vampire Survivors. These are examples of games combining genres together. And it didn't happen. Shadowhand was a flop. It did not earn back the money and time that they put into it, and Jake's been very transparent about this over the years. This was the game they spent the longest time, at least during that particular period, on developing it. With, again, the intent was to put a lot of effort in this game to have a return. Because as we've talked about before, remember, more game equals more profits all the time. As someone is crying right now as I'm saying that. But it's a very interesting case in terms of studying why something like Shadowhand did not break out in the same way that Forbidden Solitaire is doing. And we can of course talk about this from an aesthetic point of view, but there's also something very interesting about the market and the gameplay itself. Shadowhand, as I said, was an attempt at trying to combine as much as possible with the casual Solitaire gameplay with having actual combat and having decision making that goes into it. So again, you would think that by making a game to appeal to two different markets, you're going to get double the consumer base. As we've talked about many times, that does not happen. Because again, when you start combining genres together, you are segmenting the collective audience, not growing it. If I want to make a visual novel dating sim, factory automation, survival horror game, I can do that. But I'm going to have to be very particular as to who this game is going to be aimed for. And with Shadowhand, what happened was I think they found like the perfectly sized hole in the net that the game fell through in terms of trying to reach people. On one hand, it is far too advanced for someone who just plays casual solitaire. Now you have to worry about creating builds, equipment, trying to figure out why this boss is not going down. On the other hand, it's too simple for hardcore RPG fans, the number-crunching build lovers like yours truly. Oh no, this boss resists gun and sword but takes 300% more poison damage. I wonder what cards I should put in my deck for this fight. But then you throw, of course, the RNG of Solitaire in, and then you have all the fun of not being able to complete a chapter challenge because you can't get the times 15 multiplier because you can't draw a 6 to save your life. Because that didn't happen to me many times trying to do those challenges. And it ended up being a game that had a very unique and original mechanics and systems, but just did not hit either market that they were trying to aim for. And again, it is a very important lesson in terms of what does the market think about my game? And once again, why playtesting and getting those early impressions matter. I enjoyed Shadowhand, but again, I am not, nor will I ever be, a measurement of the general consumer. With all the games that I've played, that's just not possible. And as I was joking about this on the stream, considering all the random games I play from just developers out of the blue, I'm surprised I haven't played a completely cursed game here or there. And what makes Forbidden Solitaire work is that, one, it's building this off into a completely different direction. The whole horror, again, like 90s satanic scare angle is not something that we normally see for the genre. It's still very casual in terms of its play. You're still matching cards. You still have to worry about getting those combos. But there's no more chapter goals. There's no more builds or equipment. You do get kind of the gems, but they're dealt out linearly, so it's not like you're building a strategy. And instead of trying to make the combat super involved in the dark souls of Solitaire, you're still just playing Solitaire. And a lot of the more interesting wrinkles are what the enemy throws at you, rather than what the player is doing. There are stealth sections in this Solitaire game, and that is completely odd to utter as a statement. But it does do things differently. It is not the same as playing Regency or playing Shadowhand or Ancient Enemy. And I think they found that great balance. I would have liked a bit more in terms of, again, having more spells or customization, but that's coming at from the hardcore RPG side. And that's not what Forbidden Solitaire is trying to be. And again, it goes to the point of today's video. You have to understand who is the market for your game. And sometimes that's damn near impossible. If we're talking about a game that no one's ever seen before, never seen to this particular way, market research is kind of useless. You look at something like Balatro or Vampire Survivors. I can tell you that nobody was sitting there thinking, you know what? I want roguelike elements in my poker. Or, I want to play an auto battler that just has me standing there and watching things explode all around me. And those games struck gold. And again, it's why the games that came after never or will never reach that same level of success. It's just not possible. Because you have the one game that broke the mold. Everyone else is now chasing that mold. And with something like Forbidden Solitaire, again, the whole kind of combination of aesthetics and design and their theme work to deliver something that is very unusual. Now, of course, we've been seeing so many more of these, the whole gambling, not gambling arc, and again, applying horror to just about every genre, job, and whatever you can think of. But it can work. And I'm sure there are people who just were like jokingly post about Forbidden Solitaire. Hey, look at this, it's a solitaire game where people die. And someone thought, that sounds interesting. I'm going to start mentioning that to my people. And I don't know, again, it's still too early to say if Forbidden Solitaire is going to do as well in the casual market compared to Regency Solitaire, but this is definitely their most talked about game in some time. And if they try to add more complexity to it, bring it back up to the level of Shadowhand, I don't think it would work out as well. Because again, you're trying to appeal to very different tastes. Someone who's going to play a racing game is not going to probably be interested in playing your slow-moving walking simulator, and vice versa. And while, again, you can try to jam these pieces together and make this work, at the end of the day, you cannot manifest an audience into existence. Maybe there is that underground group of people who have been secretly clamoring for a hardcore racing sim where you spend half the time walking around slowly, musing about life. But how are you going to know about that? That's not a rhetorical question. How will you know what your market is? Again, while a simple answer is just play test the heck out of it, a lot of people don't have those opportunities. And if we are talking about unique games or very niche examples, it becomes even harder. Because yes, if you have the next iteration of the Super Grognar war game, incredibly rivet counting experience, and you show to, 10 people who are hardcore Grognards of that, they're going to love it. They're going to say, yes, this game's amazing, do it. Spend the next 5 to 10 years of your life on it. And then you think, well, let me put out to the greater market, and you realize that those 10 fans were it. No one else is enjoying this game. And as we've said, you can have very experimental games be a success, provided that you do not invest, all in on them. And this was, again, something that goes back to Shadowhand. When I spoke with Jake several times while they were developing it, he said that this game is, above and beyond in terms of the budget and the time that they normally do to a project. And as we talked about at the beginning, putting more into a game does not directly translate into more success and more sales. If you can make this incredibly risky, experimentally weird game that you have no idea if anyone's ever going to play it, and if you can get that done in 6 to 8 months, okay. If it succeeds, fantastic. If it utterly flops, it hurts, but you're not exactly killing your entire studio trying to get that done. Whereas a lot of people went the other way. Okay, I'm going to take out a second mortgage on my home and work on this crazy idea for 15 years, and surely it will pay off in the end. And again, someone out there is screaming right now. To wrap things up, with the hopeful success of Forbidden Solitaire, it's a great lesson in how you can iterate on an idea, and how so much the aesthetics surrounding your mechanics do matter. There's a difference between having a hardcore solitaire battle with robbers and people in the 19th century versus you playing a forgotten 90s DOS game and you have all the weird sounds and music that go from that era. And I do hope the game does succeed for both studios. And that, again, it's never about just adding more complexity to a title. You can, of course, go for that super hardcore audience. but that will never guarantee success. It will never guarantee your game reaching further out there. And I'm very curious to see if they will do a post-mortem on Forbidden Solitaire, especially in terms of impressions and wish lists that this game got compared to other titles and to their previous ones. So, for those of you watching, can you think of other games that, mechanically speaking, were phenomenal, but they again fell through that hole in the marketplace that it just did not reach anyone? So with that, enjoy your 90s cheese, your card playing, and we'll be back with some more design talks and game coverage coming soon. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and you're interested in more in my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.